APIs often are used in combination with other APIs, and one important spec came out recently, which is called Arazzo, a workflow spec. And with me here today to talk about how they implement Arazzo, which is still fairly new, is Lorna Mitchell of Redocly. Hey, Lorna, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing very well, thank you.
Thanks for joining once again. You've been on here before. You've been part, I think, of the whole Arazzo thing. You're also a big contributor to the Open API initiative. The spec was formally launched, I think, back in June 2024, so not that long ago. And we talked a little bit about how you implement it and what people can do with it. So if you could just let us know a little bit what Redocly is doing with Arazzo. I know that you've implemented some support, and I'm just curious why you're looking at this new format. And of course, this is all part of our plan to make this format a little bit better known.
Of course, so Redocly already has a bunch of different tools for lots of different specifications, standards, but I want to kind of tell this story about, oh, we built this because we think it's so important and inspiring. No, we built this because we use it. We already use a tool called Spot. It's an internal tool, mostly internal. Quite some of our clients have access to it, which uses a format to describe a series of APIs, which looks a lot like what became Arazzo, right? So we use this tool, we solved this problem, and we adjusted our internal format to align with what was being published in Arazzo. And a few of my colleagues were way more active than me in the Arazzo standard and making sure that it had everything that we were using. The Spot is a testing tool. It will replay a series of API requests and just check that everything's going well. You can do the happy path, the unhappy path, and the whole concept of Arazzo was being a flow through complex APIs is a problem that we solve ourselves. We know a lot of our customers solve. Our sister company, Rebilly, has, of course, the similar sort of questions and problems to solve. So that is how we aligned at that. If you have ever adopted a very new format of any kind, you will know how annoying that is. There are no tools. You can't test if your format is valid. You don't know if your description is wrong. Maybe your OpenAPI is wrong. Maybe your code is wrong. And so we needed to build linting for Arazzo for ourselves. But of course, Redocly CLI is open source, so it is shipped and available for everyone to use.
Yeah, it's really an interesting problem, I think, what you're describing, right? This bootstrapping is like, if nobody's using it, how do I know I'm using it right? Because I cannot really test it, so to speak, or lint it, which is even less, so to speak. And the other thing that you were mentioning, I think, is also really interesting. So you were talking about the fact that you were doing things internally and then looked at Arazzo and said, oh yeah, now we can actually use that. I'm really curious to see, how many other companies will come up with the same conclusions than you did, saying that, oh, this is something that we're doing already, so maybe we should transition. Because then you can do cool things, right? You can start exchanging descriptions across tools, which would be awesome. But now let's look a little bit deeper. So you said you wanted to have linting, and I know that Redocly is doing linting anyway, so that's something that you didn't have to kind of create from scratch. So how did you approach making sure that your Arazzo specifications actually are proper Arazzo and not just something that's pretty close?
So we had a look at the specification, and like you say, we already had linting, so we added support to our linter for the structure that is Arazzo. So fun story, ours is the first linter, and I actually had to fix some linting problems in the examples in the Arazzo repository. Because if you don't have a linter, no matter how carefully you follow that written specification document, you make a lot of edits, different people contribute different parts of the example, and stuff and we changed things as well. We renamed things, that we sort of refined the idea before that 1.0 version of Arazzo came out. So I'm struggling with this linter, like, oh, I'm testing the feature and not all of the examples pass. And yeah, no, it's very carefully went back to the specification and realized, oh no, this is just outdated. No, this is a mistake. This one is at the wrong level. So that was an immediate win to be able to push linted and just very slightly updated examples back to the upstream project. Was great. And then it meant that we had the confidence to go ahead and use that with our own internal tooling.
Mm-hmm. And the way you've described it to me, so you have implemented open API linting with your own tool set. So you have an in-house tool for doing that. And then basically you were just able to use the same tool for doing that with Arazzo. How much effort was that, like in terms of just engineering? Was it a big exercise, or was it something where you realized like, oh, that's actually not that hard. We just need to adjust to the structure of that new language?
So we already had a few different formats, and Redoxly CLI lints with a slightly different approach to some of the other linting tools that you might know, in that it produces like a data-aware model of all the different types. Everything becomes a type, and then we can do type-aware operations on that full data structure that's taken from your API description. We already had support for OpenAPI, and Redoxly CLI is not a new tool, so it's all the versions of OpenAPI, including the Swagger, so that's a different language, and async API. How much effort was it? So I did not do this work, and it didn't seem to take very long, so either it was really easy or my engineers are brilliant, and it could honestly, probably both those things are true.
Yeah, but I think it's definitely a testament to a well-designed tool set when you can use that tool set for a new task that's relatively closely related, and then you can actually make it work relatively quickly. So I know that you have the thing working, right? Everybody can use it. It's in the open source version of Redoxly, and you have prepared a little demo where you can show us how that works.
I made some promises that I was going to show this off in action and back up my claims that this actually does work. Yeah, it's in Redoxly CLI, so which is an open source tool. You can install and run it just like you would any of the other open source tools. So here's one I made earlier, which is you can use these sample Arazzo descriptions. We have them in our museum API example. Look in the Arazzo folder. And Arazzo also can depend on OpenAPI. So I've got the museum OpenAPI here as well. So all I need to do is I'm going to lint this. Let's do the tickets one. I'm going to run the linting. How can there be a new version of Redoxly CLI? Literally updated this before I joined the call. This happens to me all the time. So this one is valid. The live demo effect. I genuinely updated this last week. Okay, and if you have a look here, oh no, there are some errors. I seem to have misspelt one of the fields because I have a work flu ID in my specification. So I can immediately see like where that is and go in and fix it, which would make the output of linting way less interesting. So I'm actually not going to fix it. One of the other cool things about using an existing tool is that it already supports a bunch of cool linting things. So you can have your output in different formats. This one's my favorite, this sort of short version that you can very quickly look at a list and then maybe drill in to get the more detailed view. I also have this, we have a JSON format, which will be terrible on such big font, but you can get like a little markdown thing. So if you do a regular like status update or something, you can quickly put that into another page or use it as the output of your job ID on GitHub. One more thing that I'll show you while I have this on screen is in the configuration file, we have these various pre-made rules that you can turn on if you want to, but we also have these configurable rules. So you can go and start writing rules for how things must look. So your info description must be this length, or your workflow ID must be named like that. So the rules that you have that apply just for your organization or your context or this Arazzo description, we already have configurable rules, and you can do that for Arazzo as well.
That's very nice. And what you showed, I would say, like a lot of linting tools have those things as well, right? So on the one hand, you would have kind of your just checking against the basic format, and then like here are my preferences for how to use that. Just out of curiosity, oftentimes linting tools also have something there in the middle, which is kind of opinionated generic linting, right? Where it's like, well, this is legal, but do you really want to do it like this? So do you have that as well, like these kind of opinionated rules, or right now you're just the strict rules, so to speak, and then the very configurable ones?
Yeah, we have some opinionated rules that you can turn on as well. I'll put in the show notes the link to the guide for linting Arazzo, and we've got a few things in there where, yes, this is technically a valid YAML thing to do with Arazzo, but you probably didn't mean that.
Yes, exactly. That's sometimes where it's like, oh, thanks for letting me know, right? That's, I think, often then is the reaction. It's like,
Yes.
okay, great. So yeah, so you have a couple of resources available. I think we'll link to all of these, right? So if people want to check out those tools, they can just check them out, play around with them, and start using Arazzo, which I hope we see more and more. Lorna, thank you so much for joining and for giving us this brief demo.
Thanks for having me. I know this is not my first time here, but I'm always excited to kind of come and share what I'm doing, and also to watch all the other videos and learn what everyone else is doing as well.
Yes, and this is not your last time here. I will have you again. You already have so many more things, and we always talk about so many things coming up. Okay, but again, thanks for joining so much. And thanks everybody for watching. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing. And with that, we're done for today, and keep getting APIs to work. Bye, everybody.
Bye.